Hello, this is part two of a repair video, and I'm going to cover two amps here. One is a Peavey Rage amp, another is a VOX amp, but I want to talk about this Rage amp first. I did an earlier video, and I showed how there were lugs on this input jack that had broken away from the circuit board. So I resoldered those. It was still acting kind of funny, and one thing I found out, this channel select switch, it switches between like a clean channel and an overdrive channel. That switch might have been dirty. I think this amp might have sat for a long time. And one thing about switches and jacks and the potentiometers, well, mainly switches and jacks, the contacts can oxidize or get tarnished or whatever over time. And especially this switch here, one thing I did that I think brought it back was I just pressed it a bunch of times over several days, and I think I may have cleaned up the contacts a bit. I think it's a sealed switch on the inside. Another thing I did was I plugged a 1/4-inch cable in this headphone jack a bunch of times, because I think when you plug in the headphone jack, it disconnects the speaker. And when nothing is plugged in, the signal goes through the jack to the power amp. So if there's oxidation on these contacts, that can start to affect the signal getting through to the power amp. So one thing interesting about guitar amps, when they have a headphone jack or they have a effects loop, if those jacks are hardly ever used, the contacts that are supposed to be normally closed and pass the signal through, those can get oxidized or just have issues and cause the amp to malfunction. I had a crate amp. In fact, I think it was like this one over here. This is like a crate G60 amp or something. And I have two of these. I have one in the back. In fact, let me jump over here. This is a, yeah, this thing has a line in and line out jack, and I was having trouble with this amp on gigs, and one thing I did for a couple years was I actually ran a 1/4-inch cable from the line out to the line in to just kind of ensure I had a good connection there. So I probably should have just cleaned these jacks first. But headphone jacks and effects loops jacks, if they aren't used much, it seems like they can tarnish or oxidize, and then you can start having trouble with the amp working correctly. So I'm going to run back over to this area. So basically, this Peavey amp is working great now. It sounds pretty good. It has a blue marble speaker in it. And the main takeaway from this repair was, I had to solder the broken lugs that had broken apart from the circuit board, and I had to exercise this switch a lot. And I think I also cleaned all the pots. I actually sprayed WD-40 in them. I heard that doesn't really hurt them. I didn't have any contact cleaner on hand. That seemed to really help clean up the pots. So this amp is working fine. Yeah, I just had to exercise the channel select switch a lot, and these jacks here. I think this one probably doesn't matter as much. It's a CD tape input, so if that thing got oxidized, I don't think it would affect things much unless you actually plug a signal in there. But this headphone jack, I think, might have been dirty or oxidized along with the channel switch. Now the other amp I was working on is this VOX amp, and this was acting kind of flaky too. And I opened it all up. I looked at everything inside there. I didn't see any issues with it, and then I thought, after the fact, after I'd taken it all apart, I noticed this has a headphone jack too. So, and it also has an external speaker jack here. And one thing I did with this amp, I didn't really have to fix anything on the inside, but I did plug a cable in here a bunch of times just to kind of clean up this jack a bit. There may even be a product out there that's used for cleaning 1/4-inch jacks. I'll have to check online, but if nothing else, one thing you can do is just to take a regular guitar cable and plug it in and out of the jack a bunch of times to hopefully break off any kind of oxidation or a tarnish on the connectors. I think the headphone jack on this one might have been the culprit though, because the guy who owns this, I don't think he ever used the headphone jack. And once again, the signal has to pass through some closed switch contacts on the headphone jack, and it looked kind of tarnished on the inside when I had the amp opened up, but I Again, with this jack, I just plugged a headphone, 1/8" plug in here a bunch of times, and that may have solved the problem. So this amp is now working great. Sounds pretty good. It's a VOX VT50, and it has a little vacuum tube on the inside. So anyways, that is the takeaway from this amp repair and the Peavey amp repair. Hope you find this stuff useful, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.